Like a Boss podcast, presented by the Portland Press Herald and sponsored by Bernstein Shore, New England Cancer Specialists, live and work in Maine.com, and People's United Bank. For more information on the Like a Boss podcasts and live events, visit likeaboss.pressherald.com. Today's guest, Lisa Whited, is the founder and chief transformation officer of WTF, Workplace Transformation Facilitation. Now here's your host, Portland Press Herald publisher and CEO, Lisa DeSisto.
Welcome to Like a Boss. I'm Lisa DeSisto, CEO of Maine Today Media, and my guest today is Lisa Whited, the CEO of Workplace Transformation Facilitation. Yes, that's WTF. So welcome, Lisa, and let's just start with the name. Like, seriously, WTF?
So WTF, yeah. So I have had my own business since I was 23, and I've had several midlife crises, and the last one was about 2 years ago. And I was thinking of the work that I've been doing for more than 30 years, which is all around workplaces. And there is a statistic that has not changed for more than 15 years, is how unengaged people are at work, how disengaged, how unhappy they are at work. So I was thinking about the work I've done, and I thought, here I am, midlife, mid-career, beyond mid-career, and I thought, WTF am I going to do about making a difference? And I can make a difference. So I decided to rebrand. The WTF came about in a sort of weird way. I'm not going to get into that, but it was it dawned on me one day, actually in spinning class, when I was trying to think about what the name would be. I thought, it's Workplace Transformation Facilitation. It's all about making change in the workplace easier, facilitating change, transformation in the workplace. And oh my God, it's WTF. And it's a little gutsy. And my husband actually said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I said, "You think it's a bad idea?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm definitely sure I want to do it then."
So now, in full disclosure, I want to say that our company, Maine Today Media, and WTF are working together on an engagement. We're actually here in South Portland, where we're transforming what was formerly our printing and distribution plant into continuing to be a printing plant, but also to bring more of our employees over here and really make this a vibrant workplace that has more office workers, journalists, photographers, sales, marketing people than it really does people that work in the press room. So, and one of the things, you have been so great in opening my eyes to things that I really should have known, that I wanted to share some of those tips with our listeners. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, is employee engagement. One of the things that I thought was hilarious is when we had meetings with our employees, some people said to me, "Does she know the acronym of her company is I'm like, can you believe it's WTF? Do you think she knows?" So I'm like, yeah, it was actually pretty deliberate. So I thought that was very funny. So before we get into employee engagement, let's talk about you, where you grew up, what you studied, and then how you got into the space.
Great, thanks, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted. I've totally enjoyed our engagement, and this is just like a icing on the cake, I guess you'd say. So I am a northern Maine girl. I didn't grow up in the county. I was born in Holton. My grandfather was a potato farmer, but we moved to Portland when I was about 4. So I grew up locally, went to local schools, but then I left and I got a degree in interior design, which today we call interior architecture. It's really about the interior of a space to make it safe and all components of designing an interior. And then when again, another midlife crisis, I've had one for each kid. So when I was in my late 30s, I went back and got my master's in management and organization from Antioch University. And I did that because I was interested in the work that I was doing when I started my company, I was 23, is the challenges that my clients had around management and organization. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn more about the HR component, the employee component. I definitely saw a link between environment, physical environment, and people and happiness and engagement. So that's how my education sort of evolved. I was still working. I also studied architecture for a couple of years in Boston at the Boston Architectural College. Didn't get my degree there, but I just added on to my first degree.
So then what was your first job?
Right out of school, again, I'd interned when I was in school for a local office furniture dealer. Oh. And I worked there for 3 years. I loved it. I worked hard. I actually I dealt with workaholism. The only ism in our society that we reward is workaholism. It's such a sick thing we've got going in our culture. So I was working a lot, and I went in and asked for a raise. I was making $12,000 a year. I asked for a raise and was told no. And I thought, well, why am I killing myself for this company? I could go do this on my own, nothing to lose. Did move back with my parents, and I just started when I was young, just to get
that's
going.
pretty brave.
Yeah.
Pretty brave.
But again, nothing to lose, no kids, nothing like that. So,
Right. So how did you go out and get your first clients?
It's always been word of mouth. From that first job out of school, I just did my best for my clients, and then it just built. It's always been word of mouth that I would get my next client.
So no big newspaper advertising campaign?
Sorry.
That's okay.
No.
That's okay. It doesn't work for every business. It works for most businesses.
I'm sure it's great for most
businesses. It's great. All right, so let's talk about employee engagement. So the statistics are pretty staggering as to how many people are just not engaged at all at work.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. There are, and I just pulled these statistics from the latest Gallup poll, which is the one that I've referenced that hasn't changed for so long. There are only 33% of employees are engaged at work. Now, your engaged employees are one that are jumping out of bed. They can't wait to get to work. They're excited about the work they're doing. And only 51%, that's the big chunk in the middle, they're just sort of showing up at work. They're checking in, doing their work, but they're not really loving it. They're not engaged in it. And then 16% are actively disengaged. That means they're coming to work, but they're surfing for other jobs while they're working for you. So that, again, that WTF moment for me was, all right, is there anything I can do to move the needle on this, to try to create a holistic look at organizations, thinking about the people, the HR component, the physical space, the architecture, and then the most important in my work is leadership, the vision and the leadership of that organization. So I look at all three to try to create a workplace that people just are loving what they're doing. They can't wait to get there.
What do you think some primary sources of low engagement are? Like what causes people to check out?
Yeah, and you've probably heard this. People hire a company and they fire their manager. What that means is they go to work for a company because they're excited about the opportunity and that what that company is doing. But they usually leave because of that management relationship. There's something going on that is just not motivating for them. So that relationship is one of the most important things to pay attention to.
So when you're describing then a highly engaged employee, would you say chances are there's a strong bond between that person and their supervisor, their manager?
Chances are that is definitely there. And the other thing that is there is vision. I spend a lot of time talking about vision and vision clarification. In real estate, they always say it's location, location, location. In my work, it's leadership, leadership, leadership. Mm-hmm. So the leadership of the organization and having a clear vision of where that organization is going and what that leader wants to have happen. But the leader can't just have it. They also have to share it and really communicate broadly and consistently what that vision is and why it's important and how it can impact the employee, or more importantly, how the employee can impact achieving that vision. Daniel Pink, who wrote Drive, which talks about intrinsic human motivators, talks about the things that really motivate people at work. I use the acronym CAMP to remember it. It's community, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Community. I want to be working with like-minded people and be around people that I enjoy being with. Autonomy. Give me the opportunity to do self-directed work. Tell me what you want for outcomes. Let me figure out how to get there. Mastery. People want to know they're learning more information, new information, and mastering new knowledge and skills and abilities. And purpose. Purpose is that connection. At the end of the day, I want to know I've done something to make a difference in helping us achieve the vision, not just checking the boxes to do this paperwork or whatever I'm supposed to be doing.
So the M definitely doesn't stand for micromanagement then.
No, it definitely does not.
You should come up with another word that is all the bugaboos.
All the negative.
Right,
all right, good. I'll put that on my to-do list.
Yeah,
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
All right.
So what are some of the best practices or the things that you've seen companies do to take an active role in deepening engagement or improving engagement?
So in the way that I built the work, the process that I've done is it did start with the architecture, with the physical change. I figure if you're going to go through physical change anyway, use that as an opportunity to engage your employees in that process. Too many organizations, especially as they get larger, we'll have a facilities department or an operations group that are just going to dive in and do it, and they don't want to engage employees or talk to them because it takes more time, and they're also concerned about taking time away from their day-to-day work. But when you engage employees in a conversation, it doesn't have to be a long conversation, you are letting them be heard, which is really what people need. And they also have some great ideas to add. So that opportunity exists. It's taking advantage of it. The other thing is, with technology, there's so many opportunities to do more check-ins more consistently. The idea of an annual performance review or a formal review a couple times a year is just old practice. And the example I use, if you're coaching a baseball game, if you're coaching a team, and they're playing a game, and then you wait until the next week to give feedback to the players if something didn't go well, they're like, what are you talking about? Of course you want in-the-moment feedback. You need to find those opportunities. There's a couple of ways. You can do it, sure, in just how you're engaging, again, face-to-face with your employees day-to-day, but also there are pulse surveys that you can use. Friday Feedback is one of my favorites, fridayfeedback.com. It's not anonymous. It's a way for managers to get a couple questions out and get feedback from their direct reports every 1 to 2 weeks. You just have to be available and be visible. And so that goes a lot to the physical environment, right? We're talking about not hiding behind a door and hiding behind a wall, but that's why you see so many environments now with more glass and more open space, so there's more visual connection.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, because when we were working on our project together, we had a lot of discussion about offices or no offices for leadership, and we got most people to agree that let's try this open space. I know personally, when I take my laptop and go and sit in the hall, I have so many more interactions with people and learn more about the pulse of the company than when I stay in my office and just bang through my email.
Yeah, hidden away. Yeah. So the idea around this is to think about, and you often hear a backlash around the phrase open environment. So I try not to even say that word anymore. It's just a changed environment. But really what you want to do is allow places for privacy. That anybody needs privacy. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the lowest person on the totem pole. We all need privacy at certain points during the day or during the week. And the other thing is statistics show that usually the senior leaders of an organization are never in their office anyway. The amount of time you're physically in your office is really low. Why take that real estate and dedicate it to one person? So the idea is providing plenty of these personal solo spaces, huddle spaces, and anybody can use at any point during the day, and then having other spaces that you can go and sit and be more connected. And the idea of choice at work. Why is Starbucks such a hot place for people to go hang out? They have a comfortable chair, they've got coffee, we've talked about the importance of coffee, and there's a hum there and a vibe, and they're able to be really productive. So this idea of choice of where to go to sit and allow me privacy when I need it, and let me be connected when I need it. It's choice is the key thing.
Yeah, so when we were doing our engagement, you said, I think you had a slide about this that said, do not underestimate the importance of coffee, food, and fitness. Yeah. So why are those so critical to the modern workspace?
Well, again, just basic, the basic needs. But food, in any culture, food is what brings us together. I do work in the community connecting our immigrant families to the high schools. And food is the part that brings us all together, no matter what our culture. It's a shared experience. So it's important because it allows connection and conversation, and even if it's just talking about the food. Coffee, and good coffee. It's got to be good coffee. Because, again, that's part of that in our society. That's sort of the hum. That's what gets us together. And even if you're drinking decaf, it's just a way, that thing around the good coffee and connection.
Yeah, so bad coffee could actually work to decrease engagement.
Yeah, or it's just like, oh, God. And then charging people for it? Oh, yeah. It's like, no, it's got to be free good coffee.
Oh, gosh, you didn't mention that.
Yeah,
it to be free.
Oh, it's got to be free. Come on, Lisa.
Okay.
And fitness is wellness throughout the day. So even if you don't have a fitness facility in your workplace, what we're trying to do in workplaces is get people to move throughout the day. So you've heard of sit-stand, of course, people to be, but you can't just stand all day or sit all day. It's the idea of movement, to really make yourself move throughout the office. And that's the other thing is when when you have these different spaces to go to, then you're up and you're moving. Shared central recycling and central trash. Instead of giving everybody a trash can, again, that gets you up from your desk to go throw the papers in the recycling bin. Walking meetings, go outside. We live in this beautiful state. Well,
Most of the
six
year.
months of the year. It's great season. Why don't you get outside to have walking meetings? It's really important to, and we can now, because if somebody's looking for you, they can IM you, they can track you down. It's not like you have to be tethered to your desk.
Right. So one of the things that I'm sure is a challenge for you in working with senior leaders is change management, right? Is to getting them to think differently, because most leaders love to think that, oh, I'm open to change, I'm a change leader, but sometimes you not so. So what? How do you get that?
Right.
How do you get that going?
God, so I was just with a group yesterday, 2 different groups who were talking about it, and one of the questions I asked them is, well, what do you see as barriers to change in your organization? Overwhelmingly, it was people are set in their ways or resistant to change. That's what people said. They just are not going to change, or they think that their way is good, and maybe the change is good for everybody else, but not for them. Mm-hmm. So how do you push through that? Again, that's where the leader of the organization needs to be very strong, tenacious even, and have a clear vision to bring people along in change. And that's why I insist on early engagement from all stakeholders at the very beginning. Because in change, when you bring people in early on and continue to check in with them, you can help bring them through that change, and they're more likely to have greater buy-in or higher satisfaction at the end of the change process. But how do you, it has to be a want, a real need. And why is that important in Maine especially, is because we can't get the people we need as workers, as talent. Our competition is Boston and New York to get really good talent. Yeah. And how do we get them here? We need leaders that know that this is important and they're willing to change how they're doing things so they can get that good talent and pull people in.
And you really stay with people every step of the way through the engagements, right? Because after people move into a new space, you do a survey to see how you did, right? Yeah,
well, I'm always measuring. I want to know that we're making a difference, right? So at the end of my life, when I'm able to say, hey, I did, at that moment where I changed my company to WTF, I did make a difference. So I'm always measuring how at the beginning, that first survey, and then we use the same set of questions about 5 to 6 months after people are moved in to hopefully be moving that needle. Yeah.
So you talked about the about the talent and the challenge of keeping talent in Maine. Are there any other sort of unique Maine things that have kind of sprung up in your work that you're like, oh wow, that's a Maine thing, like having mud rooms? I know. Yeah. I've visited some spaces and they have these great places where people leave their boots and their coats and things like that. Anything else?
The mud room is definitely unique to Maine, probably Minnesota too, some of the northern states, but. Also think about coats. People like, well, where are we going to put our coats? It's really, it is important to pay attention to. I would say there are 2 things that came to mind on that one. One is people name their conference rooms after islands or mountains or rivers or lakes. Okay, that's not, people are like, we've got the Casco room. That's so clever.
Meet me in Katahdin.
Yeah. No, it's not clever. So here's what's clever. I had one client, there was a software development company, and I love what they did. They did do a contest. They asked employees, and they ended up coming up with names like Control, Alt, Delete for their rooms.
Yeah.
.edu is their training room. So get creative about that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to honor founders or beliefs or values. There's just lots of opportunities to be a little more creative around that. And that's sort of a,
We should go with punctuation marks. Maybe in the
There
semicolon.
Oh,
Fonts.
Yeah. Oh, fonts. That's a better idea. That was Chad, our producer, just came up with fonts.
Fonts, yeah.
I'll be an Arial, bold, condensed.
That could be fun.
That would be fun.
The other thing that I would say, and it goes with the resistance to change, and I've done a lot of thinking about this. I love our state with more passion than you can imagine. I love our state so much that it brings tears to my eyes sometimes. But our resistance to change are in the fact that we have such an old population. Statistically, that we're the oldest population in the country, I think. So this fear of change, this fear that we have, this afraid of outsiders, of new ways of thinking, that is something that I think is a challenge that we collectively need to figure out how to move through. The other thing WTF can stand for is willing to fail, to have a willing to fail culture, to try it. It's okay, we can try it. What's the worst that happens? It didn't work. But if we don't try it, how will we ever know? So I think that the opportunity that comes is allowing us to be open to new ways of thinking and ideas that might be different than what we're used to. I also sit on the City of Portland Planning Board, and we have projects come forward that can be very forward-thinking and visionary and bold, which is what our state needs. And the resistance to that way of thinking is just huge. So I was at a conference a couple of years ago in Rhode Island. It was called the BIF. I think it's Business Innovation Factory. And there was people from all over, and they come, and it's all about innovation and a couple-day conference. And there was a young woman with a couple of her colleagues from New York, and she had her master's in technology, engineering, super bright. And she was looking for opportunities. And so I was talking to her. I said, well, have you ever thought about Portland? And she looked at me with like, Portland, of course not. It wasn't even on our radar. So we need to realize that as much as we think that Maine is this great place, a lot of the rest of the people that we're trying to get here don't even know about it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people like Jess Knox with Maine Startup and Create Week, Ed McKersey, Live and Work Maine, I mean, they're doing the right thing, but we all need to be doing more of that to really get the people here that we need.
Yeah, because I think once you get them here, they're like, oh, this place is
It's
amazing.
awesome. I mean, you think about it. You don't have the traffic. You get, minutes away from ocean and mountains and skiing, this beautiful seasons. There's so much here. Great food. I mean, it is an awesome place to be. Yeah.
It is. And so, all right. So I think you just answered the question about what's the biggest challenge for having your business in Maine. And I think, but what do you think the biggest advantage is? Well, I think you just answered that too.
I think the advantage is the healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities for connection. It's still even you can get to New York, Boston, Chicago. We're a hub. We've got the best jet port around. There's just so many great things about being here and so many opportunities. So the challenge is getting young people that maybe go away for education to want to come back and having enough opportunities for them, right? Yeah. How do we have more business to provide more opportunities? We have this huge state and only 1 million people. I mean, there's
plenty of room.
There's
for
plenty
everyone.
of room. Bring them in. Let's go. Yeah.
I guess I don't know the answer to this question, but are all your engagements in Maine? Do you ever do work out of state?
I've done some work out of state. I've done some definitely over the years around the country, and I've had some engagements for a few years. I was going a lot around the country doing more around leadership engagement, strategic planning for an organization that had 77 chapters all around the U.S. I did that in the recession when I was looking for opportunities because so yeah, I've done some, but mostly Maine has kept me busy for 30 years. So,
yeah, I'll say. So what keeps you up at night?
I don't know if I'm that unusual. It's worrying about my children and worrying about their future. That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I worry about that. If I wake up in the middle of the night, that's what usually is popped into my head. And I think, this is my goal, Lisa. I was in therapy for 3 years in my 20s. And so part of it dealing with workaholism and just life in general. So for my goal for my kids is, if they each only need 1.5 years therapy, I'm doing pretty good.
That's right. That would be that'd be a statistical improvement. So describe your Maine. Where do we find you on the weekends? What are your favorite things?
I love skiing with my kids and being outdoors. I've got one who likes to snowboard. My favorite place to go every year in the summer, I've been going since I was 11, is up to a little pond called Patton Pond on Surrey and Ellsworth, Maine. And it's a one-room cabin, no electricity. It's very rustic and just beautiful, beautiful spot. But mostly, as my kids would say, Jay chillin' at home.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you, Lisa, from WTF, Workplace Transformation Facilitation. It's been a pleasure to have you, and look forward to continuing our engagement. We might have to do an update so we can let people know how we did after we're all settled in.
Did it work? That's a good question. Yeah,
very good.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our sponsors, Bernstein Sure, New England Cancer Specialists, liveandworkinmaine.com, and People's United Bank. For more information on the sponsors, the Like a Boss podcasts, and Like a Boss live events, visit likeaboss.pressherald.com.